dogs or wives or anything are going to walk behind you, are they?
No,
Okay, good.
no, we're good.
Welcome to M Squared TechCast, a live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Well, you got me again. I'm flying solo. Matt's still recovering from his knee surgery. I think he'll be with us next week when we're going to have a special show for Martin Luther King Day. In the meantime, like I say, I'm handling duties by myself, and I'm pulling in another business partner here as we speak, Dan Keelan,
Hey,
who is he does many things with me. He's the publisher of the Michigan Marijuana Report. He helped me put together 420 Posts, which is my Wednesday live show that we do on Facebook. Actually, that's doing really well. We're getting thousands of viewers on that one.
mm-hmm.
And so, what I wanted to share with my Michigan technology news audience, I know a lot of you out there taking a look at the cannabis market right now. It's a pretty thriving business. We had the director of the Marijuana Regulatory Agency on my other show about a month ago, and he predicts, well, this last year, we did about $750 million, not billion dollars, $750 million.
That's next year.
Yes, next year.
Yeah.
Next year, he thinks it's going to do at least 1.5 billion, and then the following year double again to about 3. So, what we try to do with the Michigan Marijuana Report is not really a consumer-focused vehicle, digital publication. It's for business, and so that's what our focus is. And I wanted to bring Dan in because he has all these stats, which I have in front of me as well. And we've been doing it now for a little less than 2 years. In our first year, we were still kind of feeling out the market, and they didn't know
Right,
who we were.
right.
And now it's starting to really take off nicely. Why don't you run through some of those numbers, Dan?
Yeah. Well, let me back up a little bit. So, for those who haven't seen it, well, we encourage you to go to mimarijuanareport.com and to subscribe to the weekly newsletter. When recreational cannabis was legalized late 2018, a couple months later, we launched the Marijuana Report, and the idea, as Mike alluded to, was a business publication, kind of a B2B focused on, so how can you build up a new industry in the state, and how do people that have been maybe even in the underground kind of version of the industry turn it into a thriving business, right? The funny thing is, even though it was launched as business to business, we've done some surveys, and there's a lot of interest across the board. Probably half our readers identify themselves as consumers of CBD or medical marijuana or recreational, and then the rest are the growing businesses and the people that support them. So we cover the industry in Michigan, the Midwest, nationally, and we focus on these businesses and then all the services around them: accounting, law, security. And Mike's right. I mean, it's grown a lot. I just did a year-over-year comparison of the full year 2019 and the full year, the same period of time, 2020, and a 420% increase in audience. And not only are the numbers going up, but we think the engagement's going up. So people are staying on the site longer. We get more and more inquiries from businesses that want to figure out how to work with us and how to kind of use us as a vehicle to connect them to other businesses in the industry. So it's grown substantially in the first, I guess 18 months.
Yeah. And so we've been trying to always innovate, come up with new things. The last July, we launched 420 Post every other week in the beginning because it was summertime. We were kind of feeling out that market, whether there'd be an audience for
And we
it.
weren't sure how it was going to fly, for sure.
but it's, I mean, our show the show with Andrew Brisboe drew 5,000 viewers live.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Darren
then,
McCarty.
yeah, we had Darren McCarty. Now, apparently, there's some hockey fans out there in Michigan because that show drew 8,000
Yeah,
viewers. And so we're pretty happy with that. So now we're primed on bringing in really good guests. Um, Certainly, we want to get, there's probably a lot of people that are watching this or will watch this on demand. Certainly, we're always looking for news. So if you're cannabis business, whatever it might be, whether you're a grower, provisioning center, ancillary business, whatever the case may be,
yeah.
we're interested in hearing from you. And then for the ones that are really making great news, then we'll get you on 420 posts as well. So yeah, I mean, it's there's 15 states now where adult use adult use marijuana is legal, and then
Right.
there's like 42 where it's adult use and medical marijuana. So there's only
Right.
very few that aren't.
Right. I mean, so all the states in the most recent national election that had do we want to legalize cannabis? I mean, they all went yes. I think it was 6 states that were added just in the last election. The other nice thing about, or the rich thing about this is it's not one thing. It's not whatever you think of. It's not pot, right? It's medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, it's hemp, it's CBD. It's a very rich area to talk about. And part of the innovation for us came from the audience. So early last year, we started to do surveys of readers to find out what more would you like. And we heard a couple of things, and one of them was more on-demand audio and or on-demand video. And so part of the launching of the 420 Post came from the feedback we got from the audience, that they would like that they would tune into that. So the show creates a nice streaming video component to what we were already doing with the marijuana report, but it's not limited to Michigan. So the marijuana report tries to focus on the growing audience here. The 420 Post has that kind of national potential. So it's as the audience grows, I think the content that we're able to cover grows as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, we want to hear from you folks out there. And if you, again, I know this audience for Michigan Marijuana Report is one thing, but this is the Michigan Technology News audience. And so
Right.
a lot of you may be a little uncomfortable with that, but it is legal. And certainly hemp is legal as well. There's a lot of farmers out there that are taking a real serious look at whether they should grow hemp, and still a bit challenging. It's a brand new crop out there, and everyone's trying to figure out how to do it and make a living. And then the other factor with hemp, very strange factor, is if the THC level is more than 1/3 of 1%, you have to destroy your crop. That's the Drug Enforcement Administration's arbitrary rule.
Right.
So
Right.
that being said, with the Democrats now taking the Senate, the U.S. Senate, there's a lot of talk about maybe a lot of these things will be changed because the Democrats, at least for the next 2 years, have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency.
Yep.
And so Mitch McConnell was not a big fan of hemp, and certainly isn't a big fan of cannabis. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, it could be an interesting 2 years. I'm sure it will be on so many levels.
Well, yeah, and the politics are one thing. I think though, in terms of the business community, we're still hoping for, because we're a news publication, but we're actually advocating for the industry that we're covering. We want these companies to succeed. It's no different than cheering on entrepreneurs. And so the more, as an example, the more the federal level banking laws change, the better it's going to be for the industry in lots of states. So right now you've got very specific different rules state to state that we have to deal with. But and maybe a new administration coming in will make a difference. But as legislation on a national level makes it easier, that's part of the government's job, right? Make it easier for entrepreneurs to be successful. Some missing legislation right now on a national level. Certainly the banking law is a good starting point. It could make a difference.
Yeah, well, right now, cannabis is a Schedule One drug, along with heroin and cocaine and some of the other heavy
Yeah.
duty stuff, which most people would agree is outdated. And so the MORE Act was passed by the Congress and by the House in December, but it didn't go anywhere in the Senate. And that would deschedule or reschedule that drug, because right now, because it is a Schedule One drug. Uh, you can't work with a major bank. You can't itemize deductions on your businesses. It's very challenging to run a business when you have to eat all your expenses and you can't put them on your taxes. And
Right.
so everyone's hopeful that the MORE Act will be revisited. I'm sure in the first 100 days, Joe Biden has many other things that are more important. But at some point,
Yeah.
maybe in a year or so, when everything settles down a wee bit, we may return to that.
He's going to be a little busy, I'm sure. But, think about it from a non-cannabis point of view. If you were an entrepreneur in some other sector and you had to go to a specialty lawyer and you had to figure out a way to get a debit card or a merchant account, and all of that was hard. You would hope that the industry that you're working so hard to be successful in could kind of go mainstream. And so I think we're heading that way. And hopefully we see more of that in 2021.
Yeah.
Hey, if I can
So,
also mention, there's some things that we're working on that aren't public yet that I just kind of want people to watch out for or contact me if you'd like to get involved. I mentioned the survey that we did. We're turning that into a quarterly industry survey. Would certainly love to have, all this costs money, would certainly love to have some companies that want to sponsor that or help us promote that survey. We're doing more with a kind of topic specific webinars. So at least on a quarterly basis, you're going to see a Michigan Marijuana Report webinar on areas like law or areas like testing. So those are coming. And we're at the beginning stages of two other projects. One is to launch an e-learning initiative that provides people with training, support, and certification opportunities. And so we see that rolling out in the first quarter, as well as a veterans initiative. So that's kind of our newest thing. But think about these businesses in your community giving back to veteran charities. Veteran charities do a lot of good. Veterans have a lot of issues: homelessness, joblessness, suicide, PTSD, lots of things that we think are where we need to put our attention when we think about making our communities healthier. And so we're in the middle of a process where we're going to be able to connect local dispensaries to the charities that are going to make a difference. So more to come.
Yes, to be disclosed when we get all the
Ducks in a row.
deals done. We're very
Yeah.
close to getting some deals done. So probably in February, we'll be able to announce that. In fact, I'm meeting with some people tomorrow, along with another partner, to do that very thing.
Yep.
So yeah, lots of good stuff coming up. And Dan, where can folks find out more information about Michigan Marijuana Report?
Well, if you go to mimarijuanareport.com, you'll see the website. You'll see the news there. At the very bottom is a link to our media kit. Media kit has a nice summary of everything we offer. And for paid sponsors, it has an updated pricing sheet. We actually right now are offering all of that at last year's rates, probably through the end of January. And again, just to maybe give, we know a lot of the businesses in Michigan, especially with the pandemic, have had a tough time keeping it together. So if we can promote some of these companies, great. If we can give them a discounted rate to sponsor the publication, we're happy to do that as well. But all of that is on the website, or reach out to me, Dan, at mimarijuanareport.com.
And there you have it. We're going to go to commercial break. We'll be
Awesome.
right back in about a minute or so. Thanks, Dan. And yes,
Thanks,
we'll
Mike.
be talking much this week, I'm sure. This is Mike Brennan, and you've been watching MI Tech TV.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University?
All right, thanks, Dan.
Everything. Great
I
labs,
got this off my
studios,
hat.
supportive professors,
Oh,
plus a
yeah.
full campus
Good for
life,
that.
NAIA athletics, and
All right.
all the software you need to succeed.
I'll have
Be
to give
smart,
that to
be
Michelle.
more.
She
At
can wear 'em.
LTU, possible is everything.
She's connecting audio. All right, I'm going to jump off.
Lawrence Tech
All right,
grads
thanks.
are among the highest
you.
of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty,
Hi,
and
guys.
coaches.
Hey.
Why wait? Find out
Sorry about
more at
that.
Getting
ltu.edu.
surgery again.
Lawrence Technological
Who is?
University graduates earn
Yeah,
a degree
he
and
had
a
knee
higher starting
surgery.
salary.
Oh.
In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings
Yes,
Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and
I should
universities.
be hearing the
Be enriched.
commercials,
Be
right?
more. At LTU,
Okay.
possible is everything.
All right.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
And we're back. Mr. Matt just had his second knee operation a week or so ago. I just talked to him before the show started. He's not up to joining us today. Hopefully he'll be joining us next Monday when we'll have a special show for Martin Luther King holiday. And we're getting the guests lined up as we speak for that. But I have a long time, and whenever I say old friend with women, I get a lot of pushback. So we have a long time friend here, Michelle Gilbert. Geez, I've known you since way back in the PR days. What Mark's Lane, I think you were at, weren't you?
I was. That was my first job out of college.
Yeah. And now she's the VP of Communications for the Comcast Heartland region, which is, if I understand it, is Michigan, Ohio, and parts of Kentucky.
Actually, Indiana. and
Indiana.
parts
I knew it
of
was one of the
Kentucky.
southern
Yes.
states, you know.
Yes.
So, okay. And one of the things, there's been a lot of talk in the trade press and about Comcast having rate caps. And I wanted to bring Michelle on to address that. She talked to me, well, we talked about it before she came on, and assured me that that was really not going to affect very many people. But since it's out there in the news and a lot of people use Xfinity or Comcast or whatever for various internet needs and entertainment needs, I wanted you to be able to explain why this is out there and why people really shouldn't worry about it too much.
Sure. Well, so let me start with the idea of usage-based billing is that everyone pays for the amount of data that they use. And Comcast originally introduced usage-based billing here in Michigan back in 2016. And all of the plans came with a terabyte of internet data usage. That is a lot of data. And the vast majority of our customers never get even close to reaching that amount of data. Now, the reason it's made news lately is that in 12 additional states, they are putting in place usage-based billing where it wasn't in place before. So that received national headlines and became somewhat confusing for some of the other markets where this has already been in place, and it's most likely not impacting customers. I will also say that that terabyte of data that we give in all of our plans, last year, particularly because of the pandemic, we increased the tier to 1.2 terabytes of data. And again, that's even more data, and the vast majority of our customers don't even come close to hitting it.
You used a good analogy for me when we were discussing it before we did this interview. I think you could stream for 18 hours a day, every day, and still not reach that cap, right?
Exactly. So here are some of the things you could do with 1.2 terabytes of data. And this is not cumulative, but pick one category. But it's the extremes just to show you how much data it is. You could stream about 500 hours of HD video in a month. You could video conference for close to 3,500 hours in a month. Watch nearly 1,200 hours of distance learning videos on Seesaw or Google Classroom. I'm sure your kids would not be happy if you forced them to do that.
Well, I think that sounds about right. 1,200 hours is what they should be watching, right? So.
That's probably what they're going to need to catch up after this crazy year. Play more than 34,000 hours of online games or stream more than 21,000 hours of music. So again, nobody's really doing all of that in 1 month. Certainly not cumulative. So it gives you an idea of just how much you can do with that kind of data.
Okay. So, but again, I won't name the publication, but I flagged you on it because I saw it through my news feed, which
sure.
brought me. I wanted to get clarification from you what that meant for we folks here in the heartland,
Right.
and but it's mostly the New England states that are going to that, if I recall, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it's about 12 states on the northeast side of the US that are going to be transitioning to what we have already had in place. And, let's talk though, because there are some customers that do hit this level of data usage. And so what does that mean for them? And for your viewers, if you are one, you already know it. So here's the deal. First of all, we offer customers a courtesy month. So sometimes an anomaly happens. Maybe you're working from home, you've got kids learning from home, you hit that usage and you're surprised. So we give our customers 1 month where we don't charge them overage. If it continues to happen, there are a few different things. First of all, our customers can choose an unlimited plan. And for most of our customers that are already leasing their Xfinity gateway, adding that unlimited plan as part of what we call our X5 complete package is only costing you an extra $11 a month.
Okay, I guess most people could handle that, right? Like 30
Um,
cents a day or something, right?
Something like that. We certainly not passing judgment, and we absolutely work with our customers, particularly during this very difficult time. But, when you're using that much data, you see the value in what you're being offered. And, typically an $11 extra a month is not a lot of money when you're relying on your internet that much.
Sure. Okay. I do a lot of shows every week, but I don't think I get near the cap here at all. We do 4 shows a week, including this one. So, and then it seems like I'm on Zoom all day long with some meeting somewhere doing something. So,
Well, and Mike, that actually proves the point. You're a heavy data user. You rely on video streaming a lot, which is the biggest form of data consumption, and you're not hitting your cap. You would know if you were.
yes,
And
I
you
will.
can, and you can easily check how much data usage you are in fact using by going into your account. It'll tell you. And then also there are notifications that are proactively sent to you so that if you reach, say, 50% of that 1.2 terabyte or 75%, and then at 90%, you're notified so that you can get yourself on that unlimited plan.
Okay, sounds great. So, there are a couple things you want to talk about since we have largely a business audience. Let's talk about
Yeah.
some of the plans that you have available for business.
Sure. So, this pandemic, and actually more than just the pandemic, 2020 was a difficult year for a lot of different businesses. But diverse businesses were hit especially hard. I should say diverse owned businesses were hit especially hard. And so last year, Comcast developed a program called Comcast Rise. And Rise stands for Representation, Investment, Strength, and Empowerment. And what we're looking to do is to help Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned small businesses with some additional support. And there's a lot of different ways in which we are providing that support. Some of it comes in the form of grants, which is important, but we're also lending our expertise, providing technology makeovers, for example, through Comcast Business to businesses so that we can help them, get them the tools and the resources they need to help them survive during this very difficult time.
Okay. What else you got?
What else? Well, for everybody to know, if we're continuing to support our customers in many different ways through COVID-19. And if you are an Xfinity customer, well, actually, I should say, even if you're not an Xfinity customer, we have opened our 1.5 million hotspots across the United States to anyone to rely on to, again, help with that connectivity to be so that everyone can stay connected wherever they are. This is a service that is free to all of our Xfinity internet customers, but we've opened it through the pandemic to non-customers so that they can stay connected as well.
And you guys also offer your own mobile phone service, as it were, Wi-Fi service, where you actually supply the phones. And I don't currently use that, but I know you've talked to me about it. But why don't you talk
Yeah.
about it?
So Xfinity Mobile launched a couple of years ago, and it's available as a value add for Xfinity Internet customers. And what it in essence does is it's combining the nation's largest 4G LTE network. I'll let you determine whose network that is, as well as our Wi-Fi network, and giving you the best of both worlds. It's a great way for our Xfinity customers, internet customers, to find more value and to save a couple dollars on their overall technology needs. I know that we use it in our family, and I've got both of my daughters on unlimited plans because Lord
Oh
knows they
God, huh?
use a
Yeah.
lot of data. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Teenage girls, right? Oh my God, lots of
Te-
communications there, right?
Two teenage girls. Yes, it's quite the challenge.
Okay. And so, any other things coming up this year? What do you see for 2021? Let's just get past the COVID stuff because we don't know what that's going to be. But in terms of what you guys are doing at Comcast or Xfinity, where do you see this all going in 2021?
Sure. We're continuously looking at product evolution, providing more value for our customers, streaming options for all of our Xfinity our Xfinity video customers. You should check out Peacock, the streaming service. You get it for free. So we're constantly looking at ways that we can provide more value. I think you're going to see some announcements coming out regarding some grants that we'll be giving to worthy nonprofit organizations. And probably you'll see some speed increase announcements coming out sometime in the future.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving. The cable approach has been for as long as it's been around, the bundled approach, where you get 200 channels or something or other. Now, all about, including me, are moving towards is, all right, I still need that internet, but I want to pick and choose on these various streaming applications that are out there.
Yeah.
I'm not alone, right? You're seeing that with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not alone at all. And that's why we built the Xfinity X1 platform, to serve as an aggregator so that it makes it easier for our customers to find what they want, where they want, and when they want to watch it. So even if you don't want to subscribe to TV service, you can get what's called our Flex plan that costs you nothing extra, but it gives you that Xfinity remote, it gives you that X1 platform so that you can easily find what you want, and you can aggregate all of your different streaming services on the largest screen in your house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any other last words? We got about a minute left before we wrap up. Any other thoughts about you want to throw out there to the audience? What you guys are up to this year or anything?
Oh gosh, I think we covered quite a bit, and I'm not sure I know any other trade secrets to share that wouldn't get me in trouble at this point.
Who
But
would we tell? I mean, come on, so.
yeah, but I absolutely. The other thing I can say that we're doing is we're building what we're calling lift zones in neighborhoods like Detroit, where people are maybe for whatever reason they don't have internet at home. So we're building lift zones in community centers so that kids can get online. People who are looking for jobs can get online and have reliable internet in a safe environment.
Yes, I've seen numbers. I'm not sure how current they are, where 40 to 50% of the folks in Detroit do not have access to the internet. It might even be higher than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that statistic is accurate, but I do know that there are a lot of reasons why, in urban areas, impoverished areas, that people, even if they have the ability to get internet in the home, they choose not to. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. And that was part of why we formed our Lift Zone project.
Okay. So Michelle, when folks want to find out more about Comcast, Xfinity, where do they go?
I would tell people go to xfinity.com, or for businesses, go to comcastbusiness.com.
Okay, Michelle Gilbert, Vice President of Communications in the Heartland region for
Yes.
Xfinity Comcast. This is Mike Brennan. We're going to go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University?
Okay.
Everything. Great labs and
in
studios,
before and then
supportive
later.
professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need
All right.
to
Should I
succeed.
hang up?
Be smart.
Yep,
Be
you're good.
more.
All right.
At
Take care,
LTU,
guys.
possible is everything.
Salaries of
Mr.
Lawrence
Matt is
Tech
still out.
grads are among the
Still
highest of
with
any
Oh no!
university in
So
America.
like you guys,
Plan a campus
Mike, I
visit to
can't remember.
meet
Have I
with
shown you guys?
faculty and coaches.
Have we
Why
discussed
wait?
communication
Find
in
out
different
more at
variants in detail?
ltu.edu.
Lawrence Technological
Not yet.
University graduates earn a degree
I didn't
and
quite
a
hear
higher
what you
starting
said. The
salary.
commercial's
In
running.
fact,
Hang on
when
one
it comes to
second.
earning
30
potential,
seconds.
the Brookings
Right.
Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Whoop, Dink. There we go. Hey, it's Fred Brown has joined us again. He's our epidemiologist. And while we were trying to talk over the commercial, so which slides did you want to show us, Fred?
Well, I was wondering if have I already shown you guys a discussion about the mutation in any detail? Have I shown you different
Yeah, we
variants?
covered that somewhat last week. What you told us is you were doing a presentation to Harvard on Sunday, and you were going to share some of that with us.
That's right. I can. I just wondered which parts I'd already shared, what I haven't. I know I showed you the results of the clinical trials, but I don't know if I've shown you about the mutation. And so just recall, does this slide, look familiar to you?
Yeah, I think Dave, I know you're watching this too. I think we saw this last week, didn't we? Dave?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think we've already seen that. We talked about mutations last week.
And we talked about the spike protein. Good. Yep. And antigenic drift. Do we talk a little bit about achieving herd immunity and the path to herd immunity?
I don't know if we got into that very much. Let's go into that.
And then we can talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, I was so busy on this other stuff that do we talk about production at all? Do we talk about the production capability?
Not really. No, I know that. Go ahead.
So maybe we want to talk a little bit about this, and because you sent me a note about mutations and how it looks like we're going to be safe for a while. I said, oh, maybe I haven't told you about talking about mutations.
No, mutations was more last week. You were going to follow up in more detail this week with what we didn't get to last week. So.
Perfect. So with that, and we talked. Did we talk about bottlenecks in the distribution system yet, or not yet? Probably not.
No, I don't think we did.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about that then. How does that
That's
sound?
the most current one. For instance, me being an older gentleman, I was supposed to sign up this week at the U of M to start to get my vaccine, and they alerted me today saying they didn't have enough, and they had to give the second dose to everybody first, and then they'd get back to us later. So the bottleneck is here.
Did I talk about AstraZeneca at all? Do you remember how I talked about AstraZeneca and Great Britain?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Okay, we talked about that. So let's talk about the bottleneck. How does that sound?
Sure, because everybody wants to get that vaccine, and they're all asking, when can that happen?
So why don't we? Now it's interesting that that University of Michigan got to you and said, "We're so sorry, but we're so sorry, but we don't have enough."
Right.
And that's interesting. It turns out that we've given about 7 million doses of the vaccine, but we have made almost 50 million doses of the vaccine, which means that somehow we've lost 40 million doses of the vaccine. Not lost, but it's sitting there and not being used. And it's not, so people are worried about the fact that there's something wrong, right? There's something wrong when you can produce a lot more than you're actually delivering. And the question is, where is the bottleneck? And there are three possible options, right? The first is that our goals are just too high, right? We're being lofty and we're communicating. We think we can do 1 billion of these things. And it's interesting, the manufacturers have said that by June, July, their target is to reach 100 million doses per manufacturer per year. So those are the 4 manufacturers of AstraZeneca, who already have that capacity in place. Johnson & Johnson, who has 60 million doses a year in place, and will pretty easy to, you can imagine that, starting to grow fast. Then we've got Moderna, who's starting off new, but is, got some experience, but first time commercializing. And then we have Pfizer, who also, has, in that technology they're currently using, they've got 1 billion doses a year they could do. They have to switch some capacity, but they could get there pretty well too. So we've got the Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and J&J all trying to reach 400 million doses by June, and they think they can do it. Now the problem, so the issue is, you can see where our goal was 20 million for the month of December. We actually shipped 12 million, so we didn't ship enough, and then we only injected 2.7 million people with the 12 million that were available. So that's discouraging, and the question is, why? And the answer looks like there are 3 critical areas. The first big area is manufacturing. Could we have constrained raw materials? It's a complicated process. We don't have very much experience. We've got to do all sorts of agreements with the FDA. The regulators, a lot of these systems are cobbled together from different manufacturers. Moderna doesn't have that much of their own capacity, so they're using Lonza and others to help them. So that could be one big area where we're not, we think we can manufacture more than we can. The second big area, of course, is distribution. And interestingly, I think we are having a problem. There's a lot of bureaucracy in the allocation. It was good that University of Michigan got back to you, but the reason that you were said no to is not because we don't have some doses there. It's because you're not eligible yet. They said, oh, we've done all the, we got our bunch of stuff from the United States federal government, and we received a certain number of doses. And it's literally in the millions now, how much we've received in Michigan. But we now have to reallocate that in the state, and the state has its own special allocation algorithm. And in fact, they've reduced it from a 75 plus to a 65 plus. So that's why you were suddenly included. But now they're realizing, oh, we can't quite reach all the people we wanted to, and so they're setting those letters. So the biggest issue we've got, I think we'll see, is in the vaccination site, the vaccinator sites. We're just not used to having to do mass vaccinations. And then the last issue we'll talk a little bit about is communications. We just aren't communicating well within the supply chain to alert people what supply and demand is. And so we got lots of supply, and we don't understand where the inventory levels are at each of the demand areas, because our cycle times are too slow. And then, of course, we got communication generally. And that's a big area that's going to be of concern. We may or may not get to that today. But at any rate, we can see that Joe Biden has said he wants to actually inject 100 million doses within the first 100 days. So that's 1 million doses a day that we have to be able to do. And wow, right now we're about 350,000 doses a day. We got a ways to go. We got a
National Guard out, right?
And you can see, in order to do this, in order to kind of flatten out that curve, the goal is 100 million. The manufacturers, we think, are going to be about 200 million to be able to produce about 200 million per year at that point by April 30th. And we think that we'll be on a course of being able to actually inject about 75 million people. So we're going to be now, if everything goes perfectly, and we're able to get CVS and Walgreens ramped up and going and really going fast, everyone running to the right pharmacy at the right time and all that, we could be up to 125, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be really rough. So that's where we think we are right now. And let's take a look then at the different processes. Let's take a look at manufacturing. So this is what manufacturing looks like. And it is extremely high tech, and it's very hard to scale, and it's very hard to control, and it's very hard to get consistent yields, because it's all biological. These are all living cells that are producing this stuff. It's not, chemical synthesis. You mix X and Y at a certain number, and you stir it up a little bit and heat it and throw in some new chemicals and water and solvents, and all of a sudden you get a product that with a known yield. In this case, it's sort of black magic, right? So step one interestingly, is you've got to create a DNA template because you're trying to make RNA. The RNA comes in over the top of the DNA, reproduces itself, and then skips off. So you have to make just the right template that allows the right RNA to actually be produced. And so if you look at what they're doing in at Pfizer, that's across the top, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That's what Pfizer's doing. And their first step occurs in St. Louis, Missouri. They got a big manufacturing plant over there, and it's a big cell culture. They manufacture all these cells that are producing the right DNA. Then they have to purify all those cells and just pull out the DNA, and then they have to linearize it. They have to actually flatten it out so that it reproduces well and is ready to go. And that's very, very fragile stuff, right? We're talking about DNA. It's barely even holding together with van der Waals forces, and here you are trying to ship it across to Andover, Massachusetts. Whew, right? And now you got to actually make mRNA. You haven't made the mRNA. All you've made is the precursor for it. You made sort of the mold that it's going to fit on top of that. Now you have to put on all the right material in it, and then the DNA then produces the mRNA, and then that's again kind of black magic, producing just the right amounts and making sure it all works appropriate. And then then the mRNA is very fragile, right? So you got to cap it. Then we cap that with a 5' capping technology that's been established, but it's only it's 5-10 years old. And we also have to make sure there's going to be no autoimmune reactions. So we've actually replaced all the uracils in this RNA, which is down on the bottom of the page. You can see how beautiful that is, right? It's just very precise. We've placed all the uracils with pseudouracils, so your body doesn't react too extremely to the uracil, and it also stabilizes it a little bit. And every one of those DNA boxes has to be, the amino acids have to be perfect. Anything that's wrong is going to produce the wrong protein. So everything has to be perfect. All those bonds have to be just right. Then you've got then you've got and it's very fragile. So you got to put a polyadenosine tail on the back end of it, and that then stabilizes it. So, and then you got to get rid of all the DNA templates, right? You got to purify all that. And that's hard to do because it's linked there together. And so you're trying to purify all this stuff. Then you got to make sure you got just the right stuff, not the wrong stuff, because it could have could be miscoded, and then there you are in Andover, and you got to ship everything to Kalamazoo. And this stuff was again really fragile, right? So it's flash frozen, shipped over to Kalamazoo, and then Kalamazoo says, "Oh, great, we got the mRNA. Now we've got to encapsulate it." And so that round piece on the right-hand side, that's the encapsulation. And so you're adding the PEG, that's a polyethylene glycol phospholipid piece, plus the cholesterols in just the right amount, so that it stabilizes the PEG. And then you got the phospholipids, and the ionizable lipids have to encircle each of those DNA strands to make sure that they're protected, so that they go in your body, they don't get immediately dissolved. The mRNA is very fragile. And they can slip through the cellular membrane into your cells, and then start to do their magic. And to do that is really complicated. I mean, it has to be just the right size. If it's too big, it gets caught up by the liver. It gets too small, then the body doesn't see it. So it's got to be just the right size. It's got to have just the right amount of protein, right? Otherwise, you're going to overdose or underdose people. And it is a challenge. And then it's super fragile. So then you flash freeze all that. And it's got to be perfectly sterile at this point, right? Because you don't want to have any other bacteria in there. You're growing it in media. All of a sudden, you're going to get all sorts of contamination if you allow that to come in. So you got to make sure it's all sterilized, all purified. Everything's wonderful. And unfortunately, Catalent, who didn't even pass their sterilization test by the FDA, so they had to go back and redo stuff. Sterilization is really tough to do. I don't know if you've ever been in a high-tech facility where you have to make everything sterilized. You got negative pressure. Everyone's wearing big white suits with big goggles, and you can't allow any metal to touch any other metal. You got to have perfectly pure water. I mean, everything's got to just so, and all these processes are brand new. So we're training all these people and trying to get them qualified, and the FDA is coming in, taking a look, saying, "No, not quite." And you're going, "Oh my God, I got to produce 100 million doses." And then you go back and you can and so this is high tech. I mean, we're talking about as complicated as it gets, right? And it's all done by living organisms. So it's which are fidgety, frankly. Sure. So then the other problem is, of course, you could have raw material problems, because we were kind of scaling up for doing cell and gene therapies in this technology. We weren't ready to do, we were sort of doing, 400 people a year, 500 people a year. All of a sudden we're doing, okay, can you just do 7 billion, please? So we were looking at the raw material going, oh my God, how are we going to go all into raw material, right? So it's a lot of work, a lot of scale up that we're getting to. And there's adjuvants. We've got some, now what's interesting about the mRNA stuff is it's extremely pure. So, if people are worried, is this halal? Is this, is this have a problem or anything? The answer is no. All you've got in this thing is a little strand of mRNA, which is basically manufactured. It's synthetic, plus some salt, some water, some fat. That's about it. You're done. So so it's extremely pure. No preservatives. There's no adjuvants. There's nothing accelerating or decelerating in your body. Everything is completely natural, with the exception of the little mRNA strain, which is in your body for 24 hours. It escapes your body, and then you're producing your antibodies for about 36 hours, and then the whole thing's over. They're all done. So that's what this whole thing looks like, and so so that's the reason it has to be frozen, because there's no preservatives in this thing.
I was going to ask about that 70 below 0 centigrade thing, and that's what it is. Huh?
That's what it is. No preservatives. So it's super fragile stuff. All can break apart. You can't even, you're not even supposed to stir it. You're supposed to shake it slightly. No, I'm sorry, stir it, but not shake. I mean, it's shaken, not stirred, right? We talked a little bit about that. I mean,
that's right. James Bond would love that.
Just the right amount of agitation, just the right amount of thawing. You're allowed to keep it for 5 days after you open it up. That's it. You got to be, you got to go through about 7,000 doses in 5 days. And so that's the next problem, right? That's the distribution question we got is, gosh, you got to have sites that are able to do 7,000 doses in 5 days when you open the pack. Where do that's a lot of doses. If you go to local Walgreens and say, you're going to be lining up outside for a long time waiting for your 7,000th dose to go through in a week. That's a lot of doses every day with the pharmacist, working pretty hard. They've got other stuff to do, frankly. So that's one of the problems we're having. So anyway, I hope you understand just how kind of magical this technology is, right? It is very cool and super high tech, but we're just getting our arms around it, and we're just starting to scale it. So and the problem is that if you look at rolling out, we are very, very sensitive to any slowdown in manufacturing. If that happens, death rates just skyrocket, because we're in a really bad time right now. So we really have to make sure we don't have any problems with the manufactured volume. And luckily, we're keeping up right now. We'll see how distribution goes.
Yeah.
Here's sort of what it looks like. We think, if you talk to the manufacturing guys, they say that in December they're going to do about 10 million, and they did about 10 million. In January they'll do about 35 million. This is doses, right? This is how many we've done so far. And that little black box, that little 21, 25, 67, those are the number of people who are actually immunized at the point. So you can get a sense of just how slow the immunization goes. Those are millions of people, so it's good. But compared to the number of people we're vaccinating, Moderna's shot takes takes 6 weeks for it to really be fully effective. Right? You take that first shot, you wait 4 weeks, take another shot, and you wait 2 more weeks, and then you're fully immunized. With Pfizer, you wait 21 days after the first shot, and 1 more week after that, and then you're fully immunized. So the Pfizer goes faster than Moderna. It's a month cycle. Moderna's a month and a half. And you can see that here we go. We were ramping up, and all of a sudden in March, Johnson & Johnson joins the fray. And Johnson & Johnson is a big operation, and they're using traditional technology they already have pretty well scaled. So they think they can get to 60 million a month really fast. So we gave them credit for 30 million a month. And you can see that as a result of, by the time we reach March, we think we might be, if everything goes to the manufacturer schedule and distribution's able to keep up, which is a big if, 140 million people. That's a lot of people who at least have 1 shot. And then we can go to a second shot in the next month. And so by the end of May, we're talking about possibly having, 200 million people at least vaccinated with a partial dose. So that's a lot, which is great. The issue is that you can see that right now children are out of the mix. They haven't been tested yet. We're not sure if it's safe. We're not sure if it's efficacious. Children's immune systems are different than adult immune systems. We actually have to go through the test and do what they call the bridging studies to see whether or not we have the same kind of results. So with those trials are underway, we should know more April-May timeframe about the children. And you can see that without the children, we actually need to get to a pretty high level of immunity. And you sent me that article out of MIT Press, which I had reviewed. I'd seen the original article in Science from out of San Diego, the immunology group in San Diego, Cassie's group. And they think that it's very stable. And they came out with their result out of looking at 185 different patients, which then supplemented the work that had been done out of the UK, which indicated that there probably was chances of slippage. So we've got now 2 reports. One was the report from early on, which was just as a result of phase 1 studies where we had some pretty good results, but it wasn't over time. Now the San Diego material actually comes after 8 months, and they're saying, hey, we're not seeing that much. We're seeing durability for an 8-month period. The worry we had with the UK group was that we saw the big boost that you saw, and then it waned very, very rapidly. But it turns out the waning process isn't too worrisome as long as you're not waning on the wrong things. As long as you keep the right neutralizing antibodies there, you can wane all you like with the rest of the antibodies. If you have the right couple of neutralizing ones, that's enough sometimes for a good immune response. And so that was good news that came out of San Diego that kind of supplemented what the UK had come up with. So, hey, a lot of antibodies are waning. Now we know much more about what's required for neutralization. They applied that here in San Diego. They said, hey, things are looking pretty good. We're pretty durable through an 8-month period for 185 patients. That's only 185 patients, but it's a start and it's a good sign. So we'll take it, right? The issue we've got is that if you add, so now suppose you take out all the children, that's 65 million people gone. And then you're down to a herd immunity level that's actually below what we need. We out of the 330 million people we've got in the United States, according to what we've seen in the field. Now, herd immunity is something that is quite variable. We kind of try to figure it out after the fact, and it does require a vaccine. And what we found in the field is that we think, given where COVID is, and that it's asymptomatically transmitted, it's very different in the way it affects different people. So young people aren't affected like old people are from it, because you don't require physical contact, and because it's so prevalent in our environment. Herd immunity for us is going to be very hard to achieve. I can't emphasize this enough. In theory, because we have an R value, and the R, basically it's 1 over 1 minus R is the formula for herd immunity. When you actually do all the math, in theory, if you have a 2.5 R, then you need a herd immunity level of 56%. So 56% of the people need to be vaccinated, 44% can remain unvaccinated and still be protected by the 56%. Now that requires perfection, right? It means that everyone's completely, that everyone is, every other person literally that you meet is protected or unprotected. It's a perfect matrix. But we can't do that. And what we found is that the countries that are going to normalcy generally have have a kind of protection level of about 82%. So if you look at Taiwan, if you look at South Korea, if you look at Australia, they're at about 82%. And so I think with our vaccine, we're going to have to get to about 82% immunization for the existing variants that are out there in order to be protected. Now, unfortunately, the UK and South Africa, as I reported last time, have found some really deadly variants, much more transmissible and quite a bit more aggressive for young people than the original in the case of South Africa, than our original virus. What's interesting about viruses, they come and they go. The first mutation that we had in Wuhan, those viruses are already gone. That what we're fighting today is a very different virus than what we originally fought in Wuhan. That's the way that viruses are. So if you look at the new R0, the new reproductive rate of this new variant, we think we're going to have to get up to close to 300 million people, or 90% of the population, to really, until we really all can say, we killed that one off. And that's hard to do because you can see all the anti-vaxxer organizations in the United States already claim 30 million people. They have children that's going to get us to 40 million people who don't want to be vaccinated and are going to actively resist. And then you got 65 million people who believe that COVID really is a hoax and we don't really want to do that anyway, and it's a big problem and it's a pain and it's interfering on individual liberties. So they're angry people, and they don't really want to get vaccinated either. So we're sitting here needing to get to 300 million, and we'll probably only be able, without a lot of convincing and support, we're probably not going to be able to get much more than 200 million people vaccinated. And that puts us at a lot of risk. There's a gap there that we're very concerned about. So at any rate, this is what the supply is going to look like if everything goes well with manufacturing. And you can do all the math, and you can see, and there's been a discussion. Should we go to 1 dose? Should we go to 2 doses? Right? And that was what happened to you. What happened to you was they said, we're very sorry, but we have to, for everyone who's taken a dose, we have to put a dose on reserve. And therefore, Mike, we can't do you. We're going to have all this stuff on reserve. We got plenty of vaccine. We just don't want to make a mistake and not be able to vaccinate the people who are done first. Well, if you look at the supply, the manufacturers are all saying, we're going to make this, we're going to be okay. Go ahead and use that second dose for Mike, because we're going to, by the time, the real second dose is required in 21 or 28 days, we're going to be way up on the manufacturing scale, and we'll have enough for you. Plus we'll be able to, vaccinate Mike and all people in his cohort. And so it's a question whether you believe that, first of all, and then you got to figure out, what the effectiveness difference is, right? So if the effectiveness difference is 58% or more, that means that if after a first dose, you're protected 58%. You know that for 2 doses, you're protected 95%, but after the first dose, we're not so sure. We've done the data work, and unfortunately, it's not terribly statistically significant. What we did is for Pfizer, we actually looked at what happened to people who were between doses, right? So there was a group of people who said, who didn't take that second dose. They just missed the time frame, about 1%, 2%. And so you have a few hundred people who were on the dose who only took 1 dose all the way through, and we can actually see what happened to them. And for those people, they were 82% protected. Not bad. 82% is great. The issue we had was we also, at a statistical level, we looked at a lot more who were between dose 1 and dose 2. At that point, you only had 1 dose until you took the second dose. Almost everybody, 98% of people who are on the drug, actually, and that's probably close to 30,000 people total.
Go ahead, take that call.
No, it's fine. Sorry about that. No, not important. You guys are much more important. So these people took the first dose, then they went ahead and they looked and saw who got infected between that 21 or 28 day period between the first and second dose. And they found that in that case, you were only 52% protected. So in that early frame, that 21 day frame, you only had 52% effectiveness. And if that is the real number, then it is better. It's by about 8.2 million people to vaccinate 2 people. But if it's more like the 82% that Pfizer was saying, then we could save an additional 33 million. So that's sort of the balance that we're doing here. Do we believe they can manufacture enough? What do we believe? Is it 52 or is it 82? And then if, depending on what side of the equation you're on, you're going to say, hey, we're going to kill 8,000 extra people by letting Mike take his dose now. Or we're going to say, hey, we're going to save Mike and 33 million more people because we let them take the first dose without worrying about that
second option.
Yeah, you like the second one, right?
We want to save Mike,
We're going to save Mike, right? So that's sort of the argument. And it is a tough argument. And it looks like Joe Biden wants to do the good news is, it looks like Joe agrees with you. He wants to save you. But what's going to probably happen is we're probably going to take a little bit of an insurance policy. And the insurance policy is going to be, we'll give Mike his first dose, but it could be that Mike has to wait because he's a healthy, younger guy compared to everybody else in the cohort who may be over 75 with lots of multiple conditions. But Mike may have to wait for his second dose. Yeah. So you're going to be in limbo a little bit, possibly a little bit longer if they agree that Joe Biden's new approach is better. The other big question that we have is are we answering the right question? And the right question is, why why isn't Mike getting his dose? One of the answers is because there's not enough manufactured. But the other answer could be because we don't have enough distribution. And so even if Pfizer makes this all, and even if everything's wonderful, maybe we can't even get it to University of Michigan to give Mike his dose. And so that's and so here's what it starts to look like over time, right? My initial analysis was only through April and May. But if you then take it forward a little bit longer, and this takes a lot of Monte Carlo simulation, and this is work that I had done out of the D-Smart group out of Deloitte, who actually, when I do this, I break our computer systems. So unless I do it at 4 o'clock in the morning, and so I had Deloitte run these, and they did the models, and you can see that. If you only have one dose, so the gray line in this particular case is what happens if you have no vaccine. And you can see that what we are projecting is that we'll have a big hump. We'll go up to we'll go up to over 4,500 deaths a day toward beginning of February.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And then we'll go down. Everyone will be happier. And hey, everything's working well. But then the British variant's going to come across, and we're going to have a scare. We're going to be working very hard. Joe Biden's going to put all sorts of new, we're going to have mandates in place. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it's going to start to work, and it's going to be great. And then it's not going to work, and everyone is going to panic, and we're going to say, oh my God, even though we don't have any bars open, any restaurants open, no one's going to school. We got all these new, everyone's wearing N95 masks. We're still not stopping this darn thing. And it's going back up again. And then the vaccines, hopefully, will kick in. And at that point, we go on a downward curve.
We're going to have to leave it at that, Fred.
We will. We're already done with half an hour. Are you kidding me?
we're done with a half an hour, yes.
Well, next week, we'll talk about distribution. How does that sound?
Sounds
that's wonderful. The next big question. Well, we got the manufacturing solved, we think. So what about distribution? Can we distribute this stuff? And we'll go into that in detail. How does that sound?
Sure. And the other thing that I was curious about, maybe we could talk about, is I was watching something about the Israelis and how they're, of course, it's a much smaller country, a much smaller population, but they've already got 25% of their population vaccinated. So maybe we could look at that. Yeah,
and they ran out, unfortunately. Well, we sure can go into that. I work with Israel also, so I'll tell you a little bit about Israel. Sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Fred. I know Dave's going to have you on his show in a week, right, Dave?
That's the game plan.
Excellent. I'm ready. Well, hopefully. So, Dave, it took me 2.5 hours to talk to the Harvard guys. I know your audience and our audience is much smarter, so they're going to get it faster. But it took me a long time. Normally, the Harvard guys would take an hour, and then you and I talk for 6. So, right. Extrapolating, we may be on it for all day. I don't know.
We'll plan accordingly.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Fred Brown, our U of M. Well, actually, you're based here in Ann Arbor, but not with the U of M. But you're epidemiologist nonetheless. Appreciate you being on the show today. Always very interesting when we have our sessions. So we'll be back next week. We're going to have a special show. Fred will be back and joining us on the Martin Luther King Day. But he'll be anchoring the show in the second half, and in the first half, we have some guests that we're inviting, but I can't name them yet because they haven't confirmed. But we'll have more of a Martin Luther King Day theme into that show. So I want to thank you all for joining us today on MI Tech TV. We'll be back again next Monday at 2 o'clock, and hopefully Matthew will be joining us then. Until then, have a great week.
Well, I only got through 3 slides. Holy cow.